Welcome back to the Phoenix Founders Podcast. I'm here with my friend Anita Grantham, head of HR at BambooHR, another phenomenal company with a great history. I want to get into Anita's career history here. This is an episode I'm excited about, talking about culture of high growth companies, which Anita spent most of her career, almost all of her career, on culture building in that role. So I'm excited to have Anita Grantham here with me today. Anita, welcome. Good to have you.
It's great to be with you, Greg. I'm excited to do this.
I know. It's good to see you again.
Good to see you.
I always want to start with, first of all, what's a quick overview of who BambooHR is, where you are today?
BambooHR is the top HR software for small business. So HRIS for small business.
Love it.
Yes.
I always want to start with when you think about, you've dedicated your career to culture building in high growth companies, mostly tech companies over the last decade. Was there any evidence, I want to go back to your background and upbringing, was there any evidence that this is where you would end up when you were like a kid?
No, none. And I'd love to say that it's founder-driven, mission-driven companies. That's been the theme throughout it. But if I go back to like early childhood, no, I don't think there was any evidence that this is what I was going to do.
What were you like as a kid?
You know, I loved adventure and I loved trying new things. So I never stuck with one thing. And I think that that's true, is I like to learn and I like a variety of different things. And so, in this job or in any of these jobs, I do a lot of different things inside of them. So I'd say that's the thread. I was super social, extrovert as a kid, loved to have lots of friends, doing all kinds of fun things. And I still feel like that's my job today.
That's fun. You went to high school here in Arizona?
I did, Arcadia High School.
All right. It's where my wife went.
Yeah, go Titans.
All right. So let's talk about kind of early career and how you first fell in love with kind of company building and culture building there.
So I had a great opportunity to work with a wonderful man that I'm still in touch with here, Mike Smith, who was the founder of Jokake Companies. He and his brother, Gary Smith, five-year generation Arizonans. And they're most probably well known for Jokake Construction, commercial tenant improvement contractor. And Mike first started interviewing me and he said, I'm tired of hiring promoted front desk and accountants to run my people function. I had no experience, by the way, in anything HR. I was planning corporate events, and before that I worked on a cruise ship. So I really just got myself to this interview through relationships that I'd had growing up here in the Valley. And he just said, I feel like you could learn how to take care and be the heart of our organization, was how he described it to me. And the first book he gave me was Built to Last by Jim Collins. And so the differentiator for Jokake through all of its time while it was owned by Mike was having a true purpose. And that purpose was to touch those we serve and transform dreams into reality, which seemed really odd for a construction company doing tenant improvement. But that's how we had all of these customers with us, over 25 years before we turned it into an employee-owned company. And we had a strong set of values. And that was the foundation for me getting started in this space. And I had a great founder partner to help guide me in that.
I love that. I want to drill down on one thing that Mike said, and I think this is what you said, but he said he was tired of people being elevated from like a front desk administrative position. What did he mean by that? What were the specific problems that he was trying to solve to take a different approach to like building culture and company building in general?
He really wanted a strategist. And what's ironic is, this was 20 years ago, and he wanted somebody to think critically about the humans first, when a lot of people, and we see this through our customer base, we've got 3 million customers, 3 million lives on the BambooHR platform, all are small business owners. And if I look at the heads of HR that are teams of one, they didn't start in HR. So they came out of accounting or something else. And it's, you see this division of HR, either it's very compliance driven or it's very strategic. And I think he said, even though we're a construction company, I don't want it to be compliance driven. I want it to be driven by heart and soul around our mission and values. And so that's been my focus. And I think differentiation and how I go to work versus a lot of my peers are driven through compliance and risk management. Both are great and both work for different companies and different founders.
That really resonates with me. I'm in my own company building journey. It's there is a distinct difference between a compliance mindset
Yeah.
and a culture mindset. I think they really are distinct, at least in my experience. Yeah.
I do too. And I think you have to be passionate about really what culture is and what it's not and how you want to define it. And if you don't have a founder leading the way, it's easy to get lost. And so a lot of what I notice in our BambooHR experience is the way to drive value is through compliance and risk management. It's a different way to drive value through culture of mission, vision, values, and strategy.
Oh, we're going to drill down on a lot of that on those things here. I did want to because I'm curious about this. What was the transition? That's quite a cultural transition to go from non-employee owned to employee owned. There must have been a lot that went into culture can persist across that and probably did persist across that. But was that a big shift for the company or not?
It was a big shift. And Mike and Gary really felt that they wanted it to be employee owned so their legacy could live on. And it did well, and it's still doing well under that construct. But what I do notice in a transition, so we could talk about the Jokake transition, we could talk about the Infusionsoft transition from going from privately to backed by private equity, Pluralsight from being founder-led to being private equity, and Bamboo from being founder led to CEO led, right? Like I've seen all those transitions go through, and the thread of what makes it work is a founder that will make sure it stays true. It's hard to have a transition into a third party, and Jokake was like this, that doesn't grow up and understand the essence of the organization. And absent the founder in a board-like scenario, I think they get lost. And we've seen kind of that dissemination in culture in Jokake. We've seen it in Infusionsoft. We've seen it in Pluralsight. Bamboo is probably the closest, given the founders are still very involved and have hired a CEO in and have that tight partnership. It can still maintain. But then there's all of this commingling of business growth and evolution, equating cultural growth and evolution.
I want to drill down on a few things there and go across your kind of career arc there too. I should have started with this, but what is the definition of culture? And then I want to talk about go into exactly what you talked about, the founder impact on culture at each of those organizations. I mean, I'd love to, especially the last three, Infusionsoft, Pluralsight, and Bamboo. I'd love to see what went right there when a founder led culture. But let's start with the definition of culture for you.
It is how the organization actually does its work. It's the actions, not the words, that drive growth to the mission.
I love that. I think a lot of times people think culture is the existence of a ping pong table or not. So is there something fun here? But it tends to be. I think at least I've seen a lot of people focus less on the execution aspect, the action aspect that you described. Do you think that's true?
I do. And I think it has gotten lost, especially with the rise of early tech and early SaaS tech. We did a lot of ping pong tables, but I would still go back and have those things. Now we have another problem in work modes, hybrid, remote, in person is the challenge. But before COVID, for me, ping pong tables built relationships inside the organization with people outside of my regular sphere of contact. So I remember in the days at Pluralsight, I would go, we had a snack wall and everyone made fun of us. It was this incredible snack wall. It was beautiful. But at 2:00 in the afternoon, I would go get a cup of peppermint tea and I'd get some Skinny Pop. And that was my snack. And I met everybody else that was on the 2:00 snack run too. And none of them were on my team. And some of those relationships are the relationships I still keep today. And I actually really needed in the different phases and stages of scale and growth at Pluralsight. So I would still have all of those things in an in-person environment. And that's why we actually just moved Bamboo into an incredible workspace that has a lot of those amenities, because it builds relationships across in a way that you don't get in a hybrid or remote format that keeps everybody tied together towards the mission. But it has to be tied to that in a way that amplifies the values. Otherwise, it just gets lost.
Yeah, I love that. We've got to have the physical connection opportunities. You got a cereal bar.
We had a cereal bar at Infusionsoft. Yep.
Yeah, I love that. No, those are good examples, and those are all really focused on purpose, mission, and values as well.
And that was tied to Clayton and Scott's original founding of Infusionsoft. It went back to the founder story. And that's why the cereal bar was cool, or that's why the balloon animals were cool at Infusionsoft. And so creating those tie-ins created meaning for new employees coming in to say, I connect to my founders and I connect to the story and what they're here to do to represent small business.
What was it that Infusionsoft did really right around purpose, mission, and values? I mean, I personally learned so much from Clayt and the team about that. And I thought the execution on purpose, mission, and values was as good as I've seen in that period of time.
I agree. And Brett Gilliland, who we both
Brett's
know and
so
love.
great. Yep.
You know, Brett was really the partner and mastermind with Clayt behind that. But some of the things I love most actually came from the Zappos playbook. So Tony Heisch, like rest in peace, one of the first, really pioneers of great culture. So Infusionsoft borrowed, I'm a big fan of borrowing ideas, of a long 2-week onboarding. Borrowed, we're memorizing every core value. And then the best steal from Zappos was writing a letter on why you would give up $5,000 to start your career at Infusionsoft. And we would have all of your loved ones come in and listen to all the new hires read these letters and give up $5,000 to start their career. And it was moving, right? So everybody would come from the company and watch that new hire graduation. Family members would come and watch it. And what that does is it builds a community around the team member at the organization. So when you have bad days, you go home. Like my daughter Grace says this all the time. She's like, never leave Bamboo. I love the people, because she's enrolled in the community at Bamboo from the experiences we've created for her.
I love that.
And it builds longevity at home when the teammate has a bad day and is like, I'm going to throw in the towel. I'm just done today.
I knew that Infusionsoft had adopted the kind of $5,000 opt-out after onboarding. What I didn't realize was, until you just said it, was the connecting the loved ones into the process. That's so powerful. Like part of our context is we go home and have conversations at the dinner table about what happened in the work, but it's sort of hollow or for the people at home unless we kind of bring them into what we're doing. So I didn't realize you did that.
We did this at Pluralsight too in a different version. So the other way is because a lot of employees feel that they lose the founder connection as we scale. And so you take your most tenured employees, and you see this over time, the EMPS or the Employee Net Promoter Score drops for your most tenured team members. And that's your institutional knowledge. That's some of your developers and engineers that know the full back end of your stack better than anyone else. If things tip over for customers, they're the people that you need to go in and fix it, and you want them to be engaged. And so as they felt disconnected from the founder because they wouldn't see them day to day in the office, we had, Aaron Sconard, founder of Pluralsight at the time, we would give out equity awards. And so you could just get an equity award in a letter. We had him do a video on a monitor that we would mail home. And the video was addressing the family.
Awesome.
Right? Dear Greg's family,
Yeah.
We love having Greg work at Pluralsight. He makes such an impact here, and it's because of the support that you give Greg that allows him to come in and do great work for Pluralsight. And because of that, we're giving you this equity award, which is sizable in dollars, to show all of the impact and opportunity to continue to grow your wealth here at this organization. And that was incredible.
That seems amazing. Then this pulled me back to early in my career. I worked at Arthur Andersen, and I remember I had been working really hard on a project, and a partner that I worked for sent flowers to my wife. And
Yes.
I thought that partner, like, she was so insightful. Like, she understood the sacrifices I was making at work, and that translated to sacrifices my wife and kids were making at home.
Yeah.
And that was so meaningful to my wife and to me.
Yes.
And so I think I should have done more of that at Campus Logic now that I'm thinking about that. But that's really phenomenal background. And I've got some action items I'm going to take to the companies we've invested in at Phoenix Ventures. That's really a phenomenal insight. Anything else that those companies have done or that you've seen the founders do to connect to the founder story and then also connect, kind of make the culture more meaningful to the loved ones or even to the employees themselves?
So one thing that we do at Bamboo, I can kind of take experiences out of all of these. We have something called Bamboo Love, and anyone that recognizes strife or struggle in anyone's life can send a note into Bamboo Love at BambooHR.com, and we will send something. So it could be personal, right? It could be a miscarriage. It could be a pet loss. It could be, we had our girls who are 9 and 12 right now, 2 years ago, we had strep throat 7 times in our house.
Yep.
And so the team at Bamboo would send cookies and flowers to the girls as we were trying to figure out why we couldn't get rid of strep throat in our house. And so it was like, hey, from your Bamboo family, we're doing those things. And so if you're a founder listening to this, I don't want you to think of it as spending money. I want you to think about it as we are investing in care for our people. And this is an age-old saying. It's not new. You care about your employees, they care about your customers, and that in turn returns to your shareholders. And if you show that you care about the employee and their family, they will care for your organization more. And they will feel connected to your organization more, because even though we talk about it in so many things, few companies execute on it and execute on this well. And any way you can bring things back, like one of the things at Bamboo, Bamboo's been bootstrapped since the beginning. And it took a lot of personal financial sacrifice on behalf of the families that started Bamboo to be able to get it to this point. All they could afford to do to celebrate employees was buy creamies most years at the beginning.
I love creamies.
We love creamies, right? So creamies are a big part of the Bamboo culture. And even though the founders aren't operating, we still tell that story. We put out creamies all the time at big events or ceremonial milestones, and we tie that back so everybody continuously feels connected to the past. And it's a way to honor the past, but create a future.
I don't want to focus on the least important thing you said there, but what's your favorite flavor of creamy?
Chocolate.
Okay, I like banana myself. But
okay.
I want to talk about purpose, mission, and values for a minute.
Yeah.
If I'm a founder listening to this and I know I need to do a little more work on the founding documents or like the core documents, do you have any advice for an early stage team trying to put purpose, mission, and values and infuse that into the organization? Maybe I'm like $1 million to $2 million in ARR. I'm an early stage company, but what's the path to put these things in place and have them really take hold and in the organization?
So there's 2 things I want you to do before you think about purpose, mission, and values. The first thing is I want you to say, what's my plan for this organization? Did I build it to sell it? Did I build it to have a great tax write-off and I've got a great lifestyle business? Did I build it because I think I've got something magical and special and I think we can take down and win in this competitive environment? It's something that the world has never seen before and the world needs. It's transformational.
So be highly intentional about what your plan is.
Be highly intentional, because oftentimes, you and I have worked with founders before and they just kind of got into it and either it was more successful than they thought it would be, like they didn't know, and they've kind of got lost in the hype and the day-to-day of the business. And I think the important thing is go back to brass tacks and be like, what am I doing here? Yeah. That was actually the first conversation that Aaron and I had when I started, was like, what do you want to do with this thing? And then from that point,
did he have an answer, by the way, when you first started, or did you help him refine that? Was that part of your role there?
That was part of my role, because I can't build purpose, mission, and values until I understand what the founder's plan is.
Good point.
And then the other piece is, has the company moved beyond? So if you're 1 million to 2 million in ARR, I don't know, do you have 30 employees? Do you have 50? Do you have 100? Are you going to be the founder and operator? Are you going to hire in a president? Like I think about Brett Gilliland at Elite, right? And he works inside a lot of those companies where it's like, I'm the founder, but I need to hire a president, right? One of the things that I think made Pluralsight so successful during the time that I was there is Aaron was the founder, but he also scaled through 20 years, right? Before we made a change. And so there was a lot. He was operating, he was leading, and he had found it. He had had so much invested in it. So he knew that we had gone through 3 different cultural iterations of values. And I think every time you add to the leadership team or do a wholesale shift, I rebuilt that leadership team 3 times during my time there. And every time there was an iteration on the values to reflect the spirit of the team and also reflect who Aaron was becoming as a CEO. Right? Like, think about it. Like, marriage is a great analogy, right? Like, JB and I have been married together for 20 years. And I am not today who I was 20 years ago. So we've had to create space in our relationship to love each other through the change. Organizations are the same way. Your founder today is not the same founder they were 20 years ago. Create space for the new iteration because the company is different and it requires new founding skills.
You're making me rethink a couple of my thoughts here, my past positions here. I've always tried to be extreme continuity and values over the life of the company, but you're suggesting we ought to revisit those and pretty regularly and see if they still fit.
Well, because it goes back to, what do you want the company to be? Yeah. Like, maybe you started at a lifestyle business and now you want to really position it for growth. I don't know if the values are what drives action and how you operate. I don't know that all of those will create that for you.
Yeah.
And sometimes we hold them out as the sacred cow, but it actually undermines the ability to drive performance to what you want to achieve.
Yeah, I love that. What about something around purpose and mission? Sometimes companies can spend a lot of time coming up with a purpose, or a mission statement or something like that. But how have you seen companies that have created a rallying cry around purpose and mission that also are supported by values or the behaviors? But have you seen something on the purpose and mission side?
So I would take the Jim Collins Good to Great framework first.
So good.
And I would be like, what are we going to be best in the world at? Because that, to me, is the driver. Are we going to be the best at delivering this software, this service, this product, as measured by what? Right? And I do believe, and I would couple it with the built to last piece of like, let's create a 10-year run of like what we can do. The hard part with that time frame is now things are accelerating so quickly. So I often advise founders to take it back to like a 2 or 4 year. We're going to be best at this by the end of 2030. Like, I think since we're hitting 2025, like 2030 is a good round number. Mm-hmm. Let's stick to what that is and then say, okay, who do we need to be as an organization? What behaviors do we need to achieve that? Right? It might be customer obsessed. It might be some version of integrity. It might be things that are differentiated to that product or service. People that really care about the environment or whatever it is. You want to think what attracts people to care about this mission, to wake up and go to sleep thinking about this. That's who you want to attract. And that's, I think, the great work that comes from a strong purpose or vision. I think those can be intertwined of like the one sentence statement of what we're going to do. And I still love the JFK example, I think, is best. And it's the built to last example. We are going to land a man on the moon by the end of the decade, right? It's clear. I can see it. I know what that is. Now, how are we going to do that?
The path to that was really quite uncertain when he said that.
It was super uncertain.
Yeah.
Right? That's why I love that story.
Oh, yeah.
And it's audacious, right? It's that big, hairy, audacious goal, but it gets you excited. And then it's like this mission statement. Okay, like, what are we really going to focus on in the next 2 out of that 10 years to drive progress? What is progress like? One bite of the elephant, right? So what does progress look like in the next 2 years? And then what values do we need to get there? And I think every year at your strategy session, you're going back to these documents saying, will these values, will this mission still guarantee attainment of this vision at this timeline? And to have a real honest conversation about it.
I love that. A few things I wanted to kind of take the conversation. You mentioned annual strategy meeting just now. Do you have thoughts? I mean, do you have thoughts on kind of the cadence of execution? I know Brett's talked about that a lot at Elite and others, and I certainly learned a lot there. But do you have thoughts on just the operating cadence and how culture can play into that?
I have a lot of thoughts on operating cadence. I've been, in a lot of organizations that did it really well. Infusionsoft included everybody in that and did it quarterly. I think that was tough. And I think it took too much time away from a lot of people to be doing it every quarter. But it was a great experience for me to learn from. At Pluralsight and at Bamboo, we do it about twice a year. And I think there's one really high level strategic where you're looking at purpose, value, strategy, mission. And you're looking at that and you're saying, do all these things still match? And then you're going into your strategy and saying, okay, do we feel good on what we're going to go do this year to get it done? And then from that place, you say, what are the skills and capabilities required to hit it. And this is oftentimes where the culture and the people thread gets missed, right? A lot of people want to go in and be like, we need people to go do these things. Okay, we'll take it all the way back up the ladder for me. You've got to go right back into, yes, it drives the strategy. We know the measures of success. We miss that often in strategic education and execution. And then we know it tries to our vision for 10 years from now. And then I can go in and say, do I have to build or buy to achieve these capabilities? And I love having a build or buy strategy because especially most of these companies, Pluralsight was 10 years when I got there. Bamboo was 15 years when I got there. These aren't startups that just came about in 24 months, right? Yeah. These have been companies that have existed over a decade. And if you start on a real accelerated growth path, everybody's going to be like, you're hiring in all these executives over the top of the people that have built this thing. Why?
Yeah.
And the only way you can answer that question is by painting a vision.
Yep.
And so that's where the people piece becomes really tangible and exactly tied up to purpose, values, and mission.
I love that. I wanted to ask you a little bit about, you've had a unique position to be able to be a close advisor in a very hands-on operating role with multiple founders. Are there attributes or are there things that, and you can talk about individual founders, but are there attributes or secrets to success that you've seen these founders do really well? And particularly in the context of founders that would be listening to this podcast, is there what's to learn from those founders, what they did really well, and how our listeners might apply those?
The one characteristic across all the ones that I've had the pleasure of working with, and they're all incredible, they're learners. And they surround themselves by people that are smarter than they are. They are not afraid to hire over. And I hear this a lot, especially in that 1 to 10 million of ARR. I hear founders being like, they won't come work for me. I need to hire a president that has more experience that they'll go work for. And that's what I want to say. No, you need to become that. What is it going to look like for you to become that next iteration? And you need to do that and attract it yourself.
Yeah.
And so that to me is the core of hire better, have a strong board of directors that's stronger than you are. Still don't lose yourself. You know this business better than anyone. Follow your gut on it.
Why is it? Is just insecurity why we tend to not be able to level up, or like what is that? What do you think that comes from?
Well, I think like if you hear any great success story, it usually is followed by a line of like, my parents didn't believe in me. People always tell me I'm going to fail. Do you know the failure rate of small businesses? Like, you're crazy. Go get a job and, stay there for 25 years and get the gold watch.
Yeah.
Right? There's a lot of pessimists and a lot of naysayers still. And you have to believe in yourself more than what everybody is telling you. And I think that's where it goes back to the support system. All of these great men that I've worked for have been followed by spectacular partners in their relationships. Mm-hmm. Spectacular, in this case, women that were like, yes, we will be by your side as you're going through this, and we will help you get through it because we see what you're building matters to the world, matters to the ecosystem. And I think that's a big part. I think if you're alone in that and you don't build yourself a community, even if you aren't married or you don't have a partner, but build a community of people that are behind you. But that are also, it's like a balance though, Greg, because you don't want the yes people. You want the yes and is this a blind spot for you?
Yeah. That it's hard to people to invite. Like you want people to get aligned, but it's hard for founders, I think, to bring in partners that will constructively debate with them.
Yeah.
And that's a learned skill, I think. Do you think that have the founders you've worked with, have they been great recruiters like across the board, or is that something they've had to learn to do?
They're great recruiters. I've always said like Brad, CEO of Bamboo, is the best recruiter I've ever seen. They've all been fantastic. He's one of the best.
What makes him good? Like, what does he do that makes him a great recruiter?
He takes an incredible amount of time to make sure that the people he's hiring really match up with what the needs of the business are. He also, I would say his secret skill, and this was hilarious because he and, Aaron, the CEO of Pluralsight at the time, are really good friends. So imagine that your reference check is from your new CEO to your old CEO who've been friends forever. And but he still checked references for me, right? He still called Aaron, and it looked like a different conversation. It looked like, what do I need to do? Who do I need to be to make sure Anita is successful? And he spent a lot of time making sure he understood that. And then he came back to me and he said, I've talked to a handful of people, and these are the things that I think I can do for you to help you be successful in your role. What is that? How does that land for you? Yeah. And then we had a discussion around that and how we were going to resource the team and what we were going to do first, second, third on the priority list. So he's a rigorous, not back channel, but reference checker.
Yeah.
To make sure the team is successful. And I think that's really important. And he encourages all leaders to do their reference checks, where oftentimes we want to give it to a recruiter. And I think if it's one of your key hires, you always make those reference calls.
Oh, I can't tell you how much this resonates. I talk to a lot of founders who somehow think after I get to a certain scale, I won't need to recruit. And I always say it's probably even more important,
Totally.
like the bigger you get, including even aspects of sourcing. Aspects of sourcing, not all sourcing, and certainly the interviewing, the reference checks, and going deep on that. It feels like that's an area where many founders, I would say most founders, shortchange or underinvest in.
Well, and think about this, like we just, rebuilt the next iteration of the Bamboo executive team. And we have to go get people that are bigger at scale than where we are right now.
Yeah.
The only person that can credibly tell that story is the CEO.
Yes.
That sells the vision of where you're going to get somebody who's in a bigger job than where you are today to come in and believe and come build at a tougher cadence than they are right now, right? The bigger the company is, the problems are still the same, but you have a lot of infrastructure. Yeah. We still are very scrappy at Bamboo 16 years in. We roll up our sleeves. We do a lot of things that most big companies have teams of people to do. You have to believe in something bigger. And this was actually a value at Pluralsight, one of my favorite values, committed to something bigger to get through to the other side and have the intestinal fortitude to get through some of the days that were harder than others.
You've mentioned a couple of times, you use the words build the executive team or rebuild the executive team. Certainly when I started my company, I actually thought about hiring an executive, and I didn't think about building the executive team. And then later on, it became quite clear that I need to build the team. Can you make a distinction between and what goes into building an executive team versus just hiring an executive onto the team?
Yeah, it's a great question.
And what you've done to kind of unlock the power of that executive team itself.
Yeah, so you've got to go back to the strategy, right? We're going to land a man on the moon by the end of the decade. Who's going to run engineering? Who's going to run product? Who's going to run launch operations? Have they done it before? How many times have they done it? What other missions have they done it on? Do we have the skills and capabilities across these top roles to guarantee that we're going to land a man on the moon at the end of the decade? And there's going to be some seats where you're like, heck yeah, I know we've got it. And then there's going to be some seats where you're like, no, we don't have it. And depending on the mission that you're after, there's times where you will take risks and give people stretch roles. There's other times, depending on the mission, you're like, I need a tried and true leader to go get this. One other dimension is you have to look at your strengths as a founder. So just in full transparency, I've been super honest about this. My weakest point has been the operational side. That's not my native. And so I've made sure that on any team I'm on, I have a rock solid ops partner at my right hand. And I'm very honest in the interview process. I need you to see things because I will be blind to this. And I expect you to come to me and deliver and be like, we are off here and this is a problem and I need your eyes on this. And I'll get right behind it with you. But so as a founder or the head of a large organization, you have to be like, I'm not strong here. And I'm a really big fan of the Marcus Buckingham strength. I'm going to know it's a weakness. I'm never going to get materially better at operations. So I'm going to hire somebody there so I can go spend time on the things that are my superpower and why I was hired into the role. And so as a founder, I think you have to see that in yourself. You have to see that in your team. And depending on the mission, then you decide how many roles you need to go after. And it could take years. Right? It takes a lot of time to hire these seats, but you're hiring in spirit of the mission. And I actually always believe that your G&A function should be built first. You should hire, your CFO and your head of people And then that way we've got kind of some infrastructure. I think it's a good triad around the CEO. And then you start adding, I like adding product and tech second, especially in a tech company, because if you hire go to market, they're going to look back and they're going to say, what am I selling? How am I getting this to market? So if you can get product and tech in first and then go hire your go to market suite, then you're ready to accelerate and go fast.
When a key executive leaves, so you've done the work, you've put the team in place, and then a key executive leaves for whatever reason, and you've got to bring one person onto the team. Is there? I've sometimes struggled in my own operating journey where the team was pretty good, where like the company's moving really well in the right direction. One person leaves. It's hard for a new person, a new executive, to like jump on the train when the train's moving. Yeah. Is there anything you've done to help? Like a new executive join an already high-performing team, but come up to speed quickly and have them not feel like they're being left out?
That's a great question. I think the best thing, and this is what we did at Bamboo, it was such a gift for Brad to give to me. He brought me on and he said, don't do anything. Just learn. Just be here. Just listen. Just ask questions. Nothing's broken, right? If you have that luxury. But that I'd never done before. It was really hard for me, Greg. Like, it was really hard because I saw all the things I wanted to go fix.
You have a bias toward action, right?
Right, I do. It's a strength and it's a weakness. And I really had to sit on my hands and understand the context, because there's nothing actually worse than bringing in an on-fire executive that wants to blow the whole thing up without any context.
100%, yeah.
And so I actually think you accelerate value and onboarding time faster by not putting them hair on fire and saying, just come in and learn.
So insightful. I love that. Yeah, that's a powerful insight. Well, what else didn't we talk about that you want to talk about? That we covered a lot of things on purpose, mission, and values, company building, growth, the cadence of operations. What else should we cover?
So there's one other thing. So I said there's two things you have to ask a founder. One is like, what are you doing? Are you going to exit this thing? Are you going to grow it? What are you going to do?
Yes.
But the other thing is that you have to say as the founder, are these core values you, or do they belong to the company?
Yeah.
And are you willing to step outside of yourself? And that's the whole premise of Built to Last. It's no longer about the founder. It goes beyond the founder. And the core values and strategy are owned by the executive team. And this is a big switch for founders that it's a blind spot. They don't see it. And so oftentimes founders build core values around the things they're actually weak in. And
why do they do that?
Well, because they want to focus on those things, right?
Yeah.
They don't want it to get lost. They've received all this feedback for their whole career. You're not open, or you need to be more innovative, or, whatever is the book or buzzword of the year. You need to do this. Okay, we're going to make it a core value. Innovation is going to be the thing, right? And is it really mapped to the strategy? And if you look, one of the things we do with core values that I love to do is if you say like innovation is the thing, what does this value look like done well? And what is this value when it's counterfeited? And I, as the CEO, has to say, I'm willing to hold myself to a standard that's higher than everybody else. And I'm going to do what's done well around this in every framework of the business. I'm not going to see myself as exempt because I am the CEO. Like, I'm going to play by the rules. And it's hard to do that because a lot of founders are like, I'm the founder. I'm going to do what I want to do. I'm going to pay myself what I want. I'm going to make myself exempt in the structure, the corporate structure of the company. I'm going to do different things around how I fund myself versus how I fund my team. I'm going to make it so I have zero health premiums, but everybody else has a premium. Like, all of these things may seem little, but you always have an accountant and somebody from HR that understands what you're actually doing for yourself and what you're not doing for your people. And that becomes a double standard that I don't think scales.
I love that. Yeah. How do you, that also sounds like the journey just from founder to CEO is hard to treat this like, I separate myself. I'm the CEO of this company. Yes, I'm the founder, but I'm also the CEO and I need to behave like an executive team member and an employee of the company in general.
That's
Love
right.
that.
That's right. And who knows all my secrets?
Yeah.
Because everybody always knows.
Yeah. Anything else we should talk about?
You tell me. What do you want? What's next?
What's something that's been on your mind or a book you read? I'm curious about something that's been on your mind recently about like one thing that's, and I think you could provide a lot of insight into, and we talked about it briefly, but you think about company building in a hybrid environment. I think you have a unique insight on culture building and company building in a remote environment or in a hybrid environment or an in-person environment. Do you have thoughts on or advice to founders on how they should be thinking about that in that context?
Yeah, I think there's a few different dimensions of this. One is I am the CEO and how do I want to work? And can I get the talent I need to run this business to work in that mode with me? And this is what we're going through at Bamboo is our CEO has said, I want to work in person and I want my whole executive team here with me.
Yeah.
And that's a function of the job. And that's been an evolution. And it's going to work for some of my team members and it's not going to work for other of my team members. But if we believe it's best for Bamboo, we have to be able to get behind it. Yep. And that's kind of the message. So it's like, how do I want to work? And then the other thing is, product and tech teams have been remote forever. And I don't think that changing that makes a lot of sense. However, I do believe that there's some activities when we're talking about a product strategy or how we're going to launch or ship a product into market. Those are great team meetings and times to get people together. So you can be mostly remote, but we will want you to come in once a quarter or once a month for these big meetings. But then you also have to decide, are you flying everybody in or are you going to stay to a geography? Which is a big decision.
It really
and are
is.
you in a geography? You and I have spent a lot of time in Arizona and Utah. We still have trouble getting the best talent into these states, right?
That's true, 100%.
And so if I'm in Arizona or Utah, I'm probably more open to a remote strategy to get the talent that I need because they're not existing. Utah's a little bit stronger in this than tech, but still, and the companies I've been there, we've hit a wall. Especially depending on where the economic cycle is. And if you have a lot of growth stage tech companies, you're going to have to go outside that geography to get it done.
Yeah.
And so like at Pluralsight, it was a great example. We went and we said, we really want AI and machine learning talent. We did a deep study around what's happening in San Francisco, what's happening in Seattle. We actually decided that the best talent was in Boston. And so we opened up another office there because it was a great time to pull down from some of the big HubSpot. Amazon had a big presence there, and say, come work for a smaller at-scale startup. And we were able to get great talent into that office and still keep a remote hybrid type setup there. So I think you have to think 2 to 5 years out. You have to be really aware of how you want to work and where actually the talent is going to exist in 2 to 4 years.
I love that. Yeah, super insightful. Well, I want to go to my 2 closing questions.
Okay.
I always want to know, I never feel like I have too much gratitude, so I always want to ask a question about gratitude. What's something you're thankful for in your life?
My family.
Tell me a little about your family.
So we've got 3 girls, 9, 12, and 25. We have a pain in the butt dog who's 5. And my husband is just the greatest partner I could ever dream of, like super supportive and helping me be the mom I want to be and be the leader I want to be. Yep. And I feel really grateful for that every day. And we're healthy, and that's all that matters, really.
I love it. Thank you for sharing that. It's remarkable to have a good team around us, isn't it?
It is. It's nice.
And then the least important question, but often the most interesting to me, if you're going to go eat tacos in Metro Phoenix, where's your favorite taco place? I'm secretly trying to curate a list of Mexican food through this podcast.
I love this idea. So, I spend most of my time in Utah, even though that we're here. But our newest good friend is the owner of Noble Bakery.
Okay.
And his favorite side hobby is going and eating out of taco trucks. So I don't know what those are, but I will text him after this. I will get the best taco shops for you because I do want, now that I'm going to be, probably spending more time here, I want to get those lists. So we'll have to go and try some out.
I love that. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
He's a fantastic founder and entrepreneur. You should have him on the show.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Hey, well, Anita, thanks for everything you've done for me personally, for the companies, the founders that you've supported and helped shape the purpose, mission, and values of those companies. All phenomenal growth stories. And thanks for being on the Phoenix Founders Podcast.
Oh, thanks for having me. Thanks for keeping our relationship after all these years. I'm grateful to spend the time with you as always.
Yeah, thanks for the friendship.
Thanks.
Thank you.